Yes.
It's Friday night. So we're going to go get started because we have a special guest, a fan favorite tonight. So let me just introduce the regulars. Me, Dr. Maureen Hayes from Galveston, Texas, and I'm joined by Ann and Jim Glenn. Jim is from San Antonio, Texas. Jim is our big money man, and Ann is our beautiful personal trainer and nutritionist. And of course, we have Dr. Lee Osler from the great state of Washington, who is a dentist extraordinaire and the author of soon to be 3 books. You all know Redox Matters and you know Healthy Matters, and you're just going to have to wait on the 3rd one because it's not quite ready yet. And tonight we're joined by Russell Mariani, who is a gut specialist. He is an educator. Has a clinic. Do you still have the clinic in South Hadley?
Yes.
Fantastic. And has written numerous books on gut health. And so we love having him on because, you know, the gut is so incredibly important. And he always shares such wonderful information with us, including how to stay hydrated and all sorts of tips for being healthy without dieting, right? Actually, what are the names?
Without dieting.
Huh? Yeah, you got it. Hold
book.
it.
I got to read that book.
The No Diet Way to Complete Health.
That's right.
Who doesn't want that?
I know the author very well.
Well,
Yes.
Russell, why don't you take it away? Kind of take us back, give us a little bit of back information, you know, who you are, how you got started in gut, what got you interested in that, and how you got introduced to Asea and how you incorporated it into what you do. And we'll
real quick, Maureen. Maureen, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Do you mind? Because we've been asked for both of you and Dr. Osler to give, you know, your backgrounds of who you guys are. I know you love doing that. But for all the new people out there, who are you, Dr. Maureen Hayes?
Okay. Well, my training is in anesthesia and pain management, and I was double boarded, and also was on a mission to kind of get people back to holistic health. So I got certified in acupuncture. And right at the time that I was introduced to Asea, I was in training for something called age management medicine, which was helping people, empowering people to take, you know, control of their own health, which is kind of what we do with Redox. So instead of hanging a shingle and being a concierge doc, I decided to be a full-time Redox educator. That was 10 years ago. Best decision I ever made, impacted thousands of people's lives, and just absolutely love getting up every day and teaching people about these miraculous little molecules. So thank you.
Awesome. Dr. Osler.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lee Osler. I am a dentist. I practice in Washington State. My background has been oriented in general dentistry, but I have a fond interest and expertise in oral systemic health. I helped to co-found the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health. Actually ran that academy out of my office for 2.5 years before we could get it moved to Chicago, where all respectable organizations are domiciled. And I was president of that organization and wrote a few books in that time trying to help physicians and dentists in the academia world, especially to understand the connections between the mouth and the body. That really set the stage for my introduction into Asea and Redox cellular biology, which is my undergraduate background work in biology and biochemistry. And so to discover these applications of science principles in a product that we've come to love and enjoy because of how it helps our families has been amazing. And I'm appreciative to be here. I'll go ahead and also give a disclaimer here at the front. We are a supplement company. This is not a drug or medicine. We don't make claims to deal with diseases, and we don't claim to cure or prevent. This is a supplement. It's a cell signaling supplement. And we're going to learn more about that from our guest, Russell Mariani. So take it away, Russ.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, Dr. Maureen, Jim, and Ann. And hello to everybody out there. Wow. All around the world, Melbourne, Australia, Singapore, every state in the U.S. Wonderful to be here. And again, thank you for doing this. How many years have we been doing the Asea 5?
Well, at least.
I lose track. I started it earlier on with William Friedman, and he had to shift gears. And then that was when Maureen and Dr. Osler, and then Ann was doing it with me early on. So probably going on about 4 years.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing that. And, I think I would like to say at the outset something Maureen just said. 10 years ago, she made the decision to become a full-time redox educator. What did you say? Redox biology or redox health educator?
Just educator.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this 2023 marks the 50th anniversary of my own personal health and healing journey. I was 18 years old when I was misdiagnosed with a terrible disease. And it later turned out that I had a condition that was still considered medically incurable, an inflammatory bowel condition. And I've learned a lot of things in the last 50 years. And 12 years ago, I was introduced to redox signaling. And after 12 years of constant studying, constant learning, constant hearing of amazing stories and testimonials about how these redox molecules help people to restore their health and restore their cellular functioning. It's now my goal to become a full-time redox educator, just like Maureen, just like Jim and Ann.
Yeah.
Just so
Come
many
join
people-
us.
There is no, we say this, and I think people hear it and they think that we're exaggerating, that when we say, that the discovery of redox signaling molecules and the creation of a supplement that contains stabilized and bioactive and balanced redox signaling molecules is the greatest scientific, health, athletic, and anti-aging breakthrough of our time. When you say something like that, it sounds like an exaggeration. But I assure you, listening or watching this tonight, it's not an exaggeration. It's the truth. It's the biological truth. It's the truth inside our physiology, and it's just very exciting. One of the first redox seminars I attended 12 years ago was a medical doctor named Stan Gardner, and he said something like, and he's still with us, of course. He said 90% of all negative adult conditions are chronic and degenerative in nature. And then he paused, and then he said 100% of all chronic degenerative conditions are caused by oxidative stress. Now, most people know what oxidative stress is, or they've at least heard what it is. And oxidative stress is the buzzword for inflammation. And if you hear medical experts and holistic health experts, everyone agrees in the health and healing world that inflammation is at the root of most dysfunction. And if the dysfunction hangs around long enough, it turns into degeneration, which eventually turns into disease.
Right.
I was reading just last night in one of my favorite books, The Science of Revealed, Dr. Gary Samuelson, the scientist who, with some colleagues, made it possible for us to have this amazing cell signaling supplement. That basically, what we now know as oxidative stress is simply the presence of redox balance. There's an imbalance between the reductants and the oxidants, and that is at the very root of all cellular dysfunction, cellular damage. So that's very significant. That's a truth. There are over 250,000 articles on PubMed about just that thing I mentioned, the source of oxidative stress. What's going on? What is redox? What is redox biology? So we are very lucky to have access to a bioreplenishment product, which within minutes, within days, within weeks, can take a physiology, this body, that's experiencing redox deficiency and redox imbalance. And it's probably not the only reason this body is having aches and pains or is being tired or is aging prematurely. But it's absolutely one of the reasons why so many people around the world can introduce this supplement into their system, and within hours, days, or weeks, or months, depending on the level of deficiency and imbalance, have a restoration of their health. And so it's quite remarkable. It is quite amazing. And I'm more passionate than ever. I'm more interested than ever in learning more about this, but it's really that simple. Tyler Norton, the founder and one of the co-founders of our company, I watched on a video just within the last 2 weeks, and he held up a book that I had never heard about before. It was published just a year ago, and the title was One Disease, and the subtitle was Redox Imbalance. And the fellow who wrote the book had researched redox biology for years, went through all the databases, and came up with this very simple conclusion based on all the research that has been done over the last 30 years into the world of redox biology, and came to the same conclusion Gary Samuelson came to 12 years ago. And that is, if these reductants and oxidants are out of balance, your body can't function properly. And it doesn't matter what the condition is. It doesn't matter what the symptom is. It doesn't matter what the organ is, because all organs, all systems are made up of cells. If your cells are healthy, then you are healthy. So we have something very special here, and just very excited to share. You guys all know as much as I do about redox. So maybe I should talk a little bit more about gut health and my background there, and where what I'm still doing after all these years. So 50 years ago, when I was given this bad news by a gastroenterologist that I had this inflammatory bowel condition, my first question was, do you think this has anything to do with my diet? And his answer changed my life, because he said no. And I said, well, how did I get this? How did this happen to me? You know, a year ago, I was perfectly healthy. And he said, stress. And he left it at that and left the room. So I went to the library. There was no internet at the time. And I just started looking up books. I had been on this crazy high protein diet for about a year. And so for the previous year, if I had eaten any vegetables at all, it was totally by accident and not by design. So I came back to his office a couple of weeks later with like 6 or 7 books about the connections between colon health and diet and the lack of fiber in the diet. And I was like, look, there's books written about this, you know, there is a connection between diet and this condition that I have. And he said, no, he said, don't self-diagnose, don't self-treat. You don't know what you're talking about. You're only 18 years old. Who do you think you are? He was really nasty to me. So when I left the office that afternoon, I knew 2 things. One, I didn't like this guy, and I wasn't going to follow his recommendation, and that I was on my own to try to figure this out. Now, I had already found several books that said I was certain that it did have to do with my diet. So that's really how I began my journey. I was very lucky in that some of the very first people that I met when I started looking for help to heal my medically incurable condition, I met people who had trained themselves in traditional diets, healing the body through a traditional approach to eating, a traditional approach to growing food and preparing food. Some people know that approach as macrobiotics. So that was my entry point into the world of natural healing. And literally within a few weeks, my symptoms started clearing up. And within a few months, I had no symptoms at all. So that really got my attention. I went back to school to study nutrition. And since 1980, I've been trying to help as many people as I can to learn the principles and practices of what today we call functional medicine or functional nutrition, integrative medicine. But in the early days, there really weren't any supplements, or I didn't use them. It was just all food. But as time went by, it became clear that there were several things, not just one thing, but several things that we could do, each one of us could do to restore the health and normal functioning of organs and systems and cells. But there hasn't really been a major breakthrough in the world of cellular regeneration, natural healing, till this. This is a true breakthrough. Antioxidants have been around forever. Enzymes, probiotics, whole foods, organic foods. These things have been around certainly my whole life. But to have a breakthrough of this nature into redox biology really is a game changer for humanity. It's certainly been a game changer for all the people who have been introduced to this supplement over the last 13, 14 years, since the company has been around. And still, after all these years, there is only one place to get this supplement, and that is through this amazing company, Asea. So why don't I stop there? Why don't I stop there?
So Russell, let me ask you to continue though. Like this segue for us, this supplement and gut health. What is the impact, at least in your observation, or maybe you can get into the cell biology, wherever you want to take that? What is the connection there between redox signaling and gut health? Because you stated accurately the paradigm that everybody out there has, this conventional wisdom of, just the diet. But now you're introducing this new thing called redox signaling. So what is it and how does it interact with the gut?
Yeah, so great question. So when we say the gut, we're talking about the gut microbiome primarily. So you have organs, of course, that make up the digestive system, the mouth, the throat, the stomach, 24 feet of small intestine, 5 to 6 feet of large intestine. Most people think of that as a 30-foot long continuous tube, but there's a lot of real estate in there. If you were to take out all those organs and spread them out, it would cover an entire tennis court. And living inside that area are thousands of trillions of individual organisms, mostly bacteria, that have a profound effect not only on gut health, but on brain health. In fact, the gut is now called the second brain, the nervous system, skin, mood, energy, everything. In functional medicine, we say everything is downstream of the microbiome. If your gut is healthy, then you're going to be healthy, particularly your immune system. 80% of the antibody-producing cells of the immune system are made inside glands in the small intestine. So how redox affects these thousands of trillions of individual cells is, I don't know how we know this, but I've heard several scientists talk about this. The redox molecules know the difference between the healthy bacteria and the unhealthy bacteria. And so just as your kidney cells and liver cells and brain cells and bone cells benefit from the enhanced redox signaling, they can detect damage better, they can repair damage better, they can restore function, they can optimize their function when they get this balance of redox signaling molecule. The same thing inside of our gut microbiome. I've met at many conventions over the years people who have told me that they had the same inflammatory bowel condition that I had 50 years ago, and they got better, and they didn't change their diet, and they didn't take probiotics, and they didn't do some kind of herbal cleanse. They just drank Asea. And at first I was like, how is that possible? But that's possible because when the bacteria, when the probiotic cells in your gut dominate that system, which is what defines a healthy gut, 80% or more probiotic beneficial bacteria. When you can help to optimize the function of the probiotics, it's quite amazing. The probiotics produce natural antibiotics. The probiotics produce enzymes to help break down food. The probiotics produce hormones that regulate peristalsis and lots of other activities inside the gut. So not only are the redox molecules optimizing the function of the structures, the lining cells and the stomach cells and all that. Lee could talk forever about the impact on oral health, the oral microbiome. But that's my understanding. So in all situations, the redox molecules are helping cells that are probably limping along at 50% capacity or 60% capacity, and suddenly they're getting an infusion of these redox molecules, and overnight, or seemingly overnight, they can go to 80%, 90% functioning. So of course there's dramatic improvement. And so the same thing with the gut health cells, the probiotic cells in the gut.
If you don't mind my jumping in here, Lee, because you talk a lot about commensal bacteria in the mouth and have found a similar thing that Russell was just talking about the pathogens being disrupted, but the good bacteria staying in place. And of course, that's the beginning of the GI tract. Anyway, do you want to speak a little bit to that? Because that is sort of your thing, the oral systemic axis.
Yeah, I can speak to the upper end of the GI tract with some expertise there, obviously. Now, there's 700 plus species of bacteria in the mouth, and the commensal bacteria are the friendly ones. We've got about a dozen plus or minus that we know of. They're called the red, orange, and yellow complex bacteria in microbiology. And those are the ones that are the most pathogenic. And interestingly, in the mouth, just like in the gut, it isn't about not having a single bad bacteria present. It's about the relative concentrations of them. We want to have a predominance of healthy bacteria, and they outcompete and they suppress the unhealthy bacteria. It's the same thing in the mouth. And one of the things that Russell was talking about was the effect of the diet, on the gut, and the same thing is in the mouth. The types of food, largely oriented around carbohydrates, interestingly, refined versus complex carbohydrates, the relative mixture or concentration of complex versus refined carbohydrates affect what goes on with these bacteria. And at the end of my comment, I want to toss it back to you, Russ, because I want you to expand from a gut point of view, the idea of when we eat, we're not really eating for us. I mean, we think when we eat or go to a restaurant, it's all about, the taste and the enjoyment and the social, but really the biological function of that is to feed the bugs. And so I'll have you expand on that. But in the mouth, it's the very same principles. We have bad bacteria and good bacteria. Our diet affects that. But also, interestingly, the use of redox signaling molecules in the mouth enhances the cellular biology function, meaning the cell's capacity to resist oxidation and to fight the bacterial insult or assault that bad bacteria pose on our own cells. And it's exactly the same. I won't say exactly, but it's really close to the same to what's happening in the gut when you have the intestinal lining, the cells in the intestinal wall interfacing with the presence of pounds of bacteria that we are feeding. So, with that, I want to toss that back to Russell. Could you address that paradigm and help us make that shift that when we eat, it's not about us, it's about the bacteria. And we don't ever think of that.
Yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Two things came to mind as you were describing that. Stephen Covey, who a lot of people know as, the author of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and personal development guru, but he had a very interesting comment somewhere in the book. And he was talking about the tyranny of the taste buds, that people eat largely based on what they think that they're attracted to, which is a lot of sweets, a lot of refined carbohydrates. Now, I don't know if he made the point, but certainly you're making the point, and I agree 100%, that part of the reason that people are compelled to eat sweet is because they have a condition called dysbiosis, meaning they have a situation where the bad bugs are proliferating or overpopulating the healthy bugs. Now, both type of bugs, both type of bacteria have voracious appetites, the probiotic organisms and the dysbiotic organisms. But isn't it interesting that the favorite food of the bad organisms is sugar? And so when you feel compelled to eat sugar and those type of foods, snack foods and candy and things like that, it's your bacteria that's driving that decision, not your emotions or not your brain. Now, your brain and your emotions are connected to that gut bacteria, but the opposite is true. If you reestablish healthy probiotics in your gut, if you reestablish that healthy microbiome, you're going to have different cravings. And you're literally going to crave healthier foods. And everybody has this experience if they change their diet, regain their health, and actually pay attention to what they're desiring for food. And if enough time has gone by and they try to eat some junk food again, they'll actually be repulsed by it. They won't like the taste anymore, and they'll less and less likely to consume that food. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. So we are feeding the microbiome, and the microbiome is controlling a lot of those cravings. And so again, we have to educate ourselves as to what are the best foods to eat if you want a healthy microbiome. And as Dr. Lee alluded to, complex carbohydrates like cooked whole grains, cooked vegetables, fresh vegetables, fermented vegetables, seeds, nuts, chicken, fish, all the foods in the cornucopia. Those are all prebiotic foods. They're all the favorite foods of the healthy bacteria. And the foods we want to avoid are really the most obvious ones. Processed foods, refined foods, especially refined carbohydrates, of course, junk food, and foods that have additives and preservatives and color, things that aren't naturally occurring foods. So again, go ahead, sorry.
Just to make the completion there, though, because we had a question in the chat about this, and that's this complex versus refined carbohydrates. The issue there is that when I feed myself sugar and flour, ground up flour, the bugs that really like that are the kind of bugs that are the bad bugs. And they eat that, and it's like feeding them jet fuel. They burn or combust it rapidly. And what that does is that it makes a lot of glucose available in the bloodstream, which then affects our hunger hormones. It affects our satiety, and our brain just loves that. It's like eating a Snickers bar. And then when we don't eat that for a while, and our glucose levels drop because we haven't eaten, or alternatively, we didn't feed it carbs, we just fed it proteins or fats for a little while, the glucose levels drop. And then the brain, if it's not flexible and it can't shift over to fat combustion, then it gets angry or hangry, as we call it, and there's that hunger hormone. And so the whole point here is how do we change or shift the predominant species of bacterial types from unhealthy bacteria to healthy bacteria? And the answer is we'll feed them the right stuff. Feed them complex carbohydrates that take a long time to break down and digest, so you're not flooding the bloodstream with glucose that then affects your hunger hormones and puts you in the cycle or loop where you're constantly chasing with a Snickers bar your brain happiness, right? So it's not really the bugs directly that are producing the hunger hormones. It's how the bacteria affect the glucose levels in my bloodstream rapidly or slowly that then initiates those hormones. Interestingly, though, on the side of this, we have the idea that improved redox signaling activity in the body also affects those very hormones, those hunger hormones, because it's affecting the metabolic flexibility capability inside our cells that we're talking about here. So it's very interesting biology. I think, Maureen, you were going to say something before I jumped in there.
Yeah, no, I'm half Italian, so I was going to complain about my little Italian bugs. They love pasta and bread.
Yeah.
And, somebody just brought up, what is a healthy diet? I'm also Catholic, so we're going into Lent. And every Lent, I usually give up carbohydrates and all sorts of sugars, alcohol, whatever. And I will start it, and I'm not advising this for anybody, or if you want to do it, do it under a doctor's guidance, but I usually start with a fast. So I'm killing off everything, right? Russell, you can probably speak to this. And then it gives you the opportunity to get rid of those little pasta craving bugs. And maybe when you start back on your diet, you kind of help to kill off the cravings when you do that. And then I usually go on a ketogenic diet. Now, you can speak to that. And I was thinking about that when you said you were on a high protein diet, and if you got a vegetable, it was by accident. Now, I have done keto many times like that, and more recently have done what's called healthy keto, which is a lot of salads plus the protein and fats. High fat, moderate protein, low carbs, except for things like salad greens and all. So can you speak a little bit to that about how, and of course, I love fermented foods, but can you speak to that about what's really healthy, what we want to be putting in our bodies to feed those? And also, if you could speak a little bit about our biome product too, and how you see that fitting into things. I know that was a lot, sorry.
No. So that's great. So in response to both what Dr. Maureen just said and Dr. Lee just said, the answer is a balanced whole foods diet. And some people right now in the chat are kind of going crazy. Okay, what does that mean? And, there's so many diets. It's so confusing. There's so much misinformation and conflicting information. It's really not fair, because the human diet did not change significantly until the Industrial Revolution. If we could get into a time machine and go back in time 500 years or 1,000 years or 1,500 years, anywhere on Earth that was experiencing a 4-season climate, and find out what were people eating 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago. They were eating cooked whole grains, lots of vegetables, locally grown everything, fermented vegetables, seeds and nuts, fresh fruit, fish and fowl. Only some countries were eating dairy. Some countries didn't have dairy in their diet, some cultures, right? But those basic foods are the components of a healthy whole foods diet. And so
Russell, isn't that the idea behind paleo? Isn't that the idea behind the paleo?
Yes. Well, paleo, I think, jumps back and says that degenerative disease started with civilization. Okay. And so I don't agree with that. So they want to go back to kind of a hunter-gatherer diet, right? That's part of paleo. But I have used the same approach for 50 years in my own life and with all the people that I've worked with, and it has always worked. Okay, so traditional diet. If your ancestors come from Morocco, then there's some foods that the people in Morocco are still eating today that are part of that traditional diet, and your gut microbiome is going to remember that. And when you start eating those foods that your ancestral DNA are used to, your microbiome is going to respond. Okay? And if your ancestors are from Spain, or if your ancestors are from, Italy, like mine were. So, but the traditional diet is really what we need to look at. Weston Price. I'm sure Dr. Lee knows who Weston Price is, one of the most famous dentists and researchers in the early part of the 20th century. Literally in the 1920s, I think he published his book in 1933, but he was doing all his research in the 1920s, was able to visit literally the last vestiges of pre-modern cultures. Little pockets still existed around the world of people, of communities that had not changed their diet, had not changed to a modern diet of processed foods. And he saw lots of very interesting connections in jaw structures once the diet changed within one generation. He was seeing genetic mutations in the structures of people's mouth and, of course, in their microbiome, et cetera. So but he saw that people were consuming a traditional diet of the foods that I talked about, and those communities had been eating that way for 1,000 years or more. So that's really the approach that we need to take. And I say all the time to people, look, if you have found a dietary approach that works for you, keep doing it, no matter what it's called, no matter how weird it might seem to other people, because if that's making balance for you, if you're having good energy and good skin and you're sleeping well and eliminating well and manifesting all the symptoms of health, then obviously keep doing that. Okay. But when you ask me, it really is this approach to growing food, selecting food, preparing food that is based on traditional principles.
Let me just add one thing there. And what we're talking about is what I call a redox lifestyle. You know, redox biology, or how cells work, the rules of the cell were designed, eons ago, obviously. And we come along in the late stages of our, human existence here on this planet, and we start grinding flour and we start doing things and we start adding to and contaminating the food supply with things that make the food sit on the shelf for long periods of time. I mean, some of this stuff is there's no respecting bug that would eat some of this food. The fact that it spoils quickly is maybe a good thing because it's healthy food for the bugs. When they don't eat it, you got to wonder why we would want to put it in our bodies and expect our cells, to function properly. So the point is, I use a term called redox clean. And, it's when we're not toxifying or contaminating the cellular biology that our cells can naturally, operate on these redox principles, these redox biology principles. And again, Russell, you're spot on. This all starts in the gut. Well, actually, it starts on the table. It starts in the grocery store, because what we bring home is what we put in our mouth, which is what winds up getting in our gut, which winds up getting in our bodies in a bad way. And so it's just a redox lifestyle. And the point I was going to make earlier is that we can't take a redox supplement and not expect to have to eat right and get hydrated and avoid the unclean, if you will, processed foods, and expect that we're going to remain healthy forever. It's just not consistent with the rules of how our cell works. So I'll toss it back.
Yes, it starts in the soil, right? Isn't this interesting? I actually gave a talk at the Asea convention a couple of years ago and drew the parallel between the microbiome of the soil and the microbiome of the gut. Okay. I have a client right now who spent 35 years of his life as an arborist, working with trees. And so in my initial consultation with him, I said, I was very excited that he had worked with trees. I said, if you have a diseased tree, where do you first look to solve the problem? He said, in the soil. And with that, I started to explain, because he had a serious condition in his colon. And so I started to explain to him about the gut bacteria in the bacteria in the gut being very similar to the bacteria in the soil. And the bacteria eats the minerals in the soil, and then through the exchange of the bacteria with the roots of the tree or any plant, That's how the plant gets all these nutrients into it. It could become a very healthy tree, and 30-foot tall tree, 100-foot tall tree. So it's the same with us, you know, the gut microbiome. But the origin of all of our problems is in the environment. Okay, and so the primary reason why you want to consume organic food is because the organic farmer is very diligent about protecting the soil from contaminants and pollutants, and is conscientiously building up the bacteria in the soil, because that's the only way that you're going to get nutrients in the plant. If you can grow corn that looks like corn and can even be 6 foot tall, but have very little nutrients in it because you just sprayed on some nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. But if you examine the soil, there's very little variety. There's no full spectrum of minerals and trace minerals. But if you go over to the organic garden and dig down a few inches, what are you're gonna see this deep, dark, rich soil with all kinds of worms and all kinds of insects and all kinds of bugs. And that's healthy soil, which allows for the nutrients to be in that healthy plant. So yes, so this is, I mean, you know, the pandemic put a magnifying glass on the disparity between healthy people and unhealthy people, right? And what we need, you know, if we had a healthcare system, which we don't, you know, we have a system that's dominated by treating symptoms with pharmaceuticals instead of teaching people how to improve their microbiome, how to eat properly, how to hydrate properly, how to do all the things that we need to do to make strong, make our immune system strong. And that's the future. And we're part of that movement. We're part of the restoration of a true healthcare system. And aren't we lucky to have discovered after all these years of science that there's something so fundamental and essential as redox signaling. And if that redox signaling is out of balance, no matter what else you're doing, you may get very little progress or no results at all. But if you fix the redox imbalance and fix the redox deficiency, then all the good things that you're doing are going to work even better in your body. So we're very lucky to have this redox signaling supplement.
Yeah, I was going to add a couple things. So I love the book Healthy Matters. I call my lifestyle Redox Lifestyle. And when I used to tailor people's meals, I would tell them, you know, avoid the inner circle of most grocery stores and pick stuff that are on the outer circle, because that's going to be where you find the fresh, healthier stuff. But you brought up Gardner, and he has a little book as well, a little sciencey, but it's a good short read. And, you know, he addresses the imbalance and why redox signaling will go chase down those bad cells and replace with good cells. But for the healthy people, the molecules are going to make you healthier. So you could be already healthy when you get on these molecules, but you're going to get more healthy by being on them. And, you know, the gene pathways that these molecules work on, the serotonin and so on, you know, that too plays a part in keeping a healthy gut. And so if you're on a healthy lifestyle, like you just mentioned, the molecules will make all your nutraceuticals work better. And I think our four products are superior, not only because of how they source them and make them in their whole foods, but if you study, Carolyn Hoffman has some good stuff on the enzymes in source, and our biome surpasses anything that's out there on the market. I suggest that to anybody, and some people are seeing even overnight results. So, you know, I can't say enough on how a difference. I was healthy when I started Asea, but having this as, you know, part of your puzzle. Yes, you need good sleep. You need good, clean water, good water. You need as clean a diet as you can get, exercise as often as you're able, but having that missing link, as many medical experts call it, I mean, it finishes the puzzle. And that's what excites me, having a company that everything in our line is cellular health. So, add some.
Yeah. I'm the non-sciencey, non-guy. I grew up on a farm. I grew up not eating best. Russell, I think we've shared before, I had a very similar condition back in college when I had a gut issue, and how much worse the diets are today versus where we were a few years ago. But here's the issue. Eating right costs more money, and a lot of people are hurting right now. Okay. And so we're kind of caught in a really weird place. We all know we should eat better. And what Ann was saying, I think you would definitely state too, Russell, that our supplements for nutrition are phenomenal. And that's going to give your body a lot of what it needs. But again, and Lee, I'm really excited about your new book because we have another solution to help fix this whole quagmire of crap. Excuse my directness, but people are hurting. They're stuck. They're stuck in a system that has made, the dollar menus probably caused more damage to this country than anything else out there. It's just pure garbage, and guilty. We did our kids with that. But we have solutions now. When I started on this, Russell, I had gained a lot of weight. I wasn't able to work out like I should because of my back issues. And Asea gave me my life back. 90% of my discomfort's gone. I have no more pain meds. But I also had to fix the nutrition. And when Via came into my life, things really changed. Okay. And now that we've got Cell Performance coming, I mean, we just have such a beautiful picture for everything. But guys, it's not cheap to take care of yourself. It's not cheap to eat right. So I don't know. I'm just talking. I'm just rambling. But Maureen, what would you say?
Yeah.
What?
It's expensive to be sick.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
expensive.
exactly. But until you lose your health, you don't know. And it's like, oh crap! I call those until people. Well, I don't need anything until something goes wrong.
Right.
But we have the answers here, Russell. But we just need some common sense back into the. And I love what you said. I really did. That we are restoring our healthcare system. That resonates. Because a lot of people don't know what the answers are, but yet here we are, we have them, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and I've never met a health practitioner in the Asea community who didn't agree with what we're saying here, that it's not just one thing. You have to, like Ann was just saying, exercise and water and whole foods and good micronutrient supplements like our Via line. And Biome is my favorite probiotic, by the way. And Life Max, and Omega, and SARS. But I want to say something about what you said, Jim, because eating healthy food might appear to be more expensive in the short term. And it could be 10% more, it could be 20% more than, non-organic vegetables or whatever. But I always say, what's expensive is what we spend our money on that doesn't work. What's expensive is getting sick. Expensive is having a serious healthcare crisis or having a disease. Paying for insurance that maybe gets you medicine that doesn't really get you well. So I've always thought of the money that I spend on healthy food and healthy supplements as my insurance policy.
Exactly.
That's it.
And so, and it works. I mean, we have something fundamental. We have many things. We have a complete cellular health company, and Asea positions itself that way in the marketplace, and rightly so, because we can help everyone improve the quality of their cells. We can help everyone improve the functioning of every cell of their body. And that is doing a lot in helping move us collectively into this new healthcare system.
Yeah.
Lee?
Yeah, I was going to say this. A common theme is emerging here, and we could actually make as we wrap up here, we could talk about why we're even talking tonight. And that is, this is about taking control of your own health. You know, you talk about we should be our own healthcare system. Our body is a system. And when we treat it right and respect the cellular biology and all its functions properly, then this system helps us take back control of our health, and we don't need intervention. Well, on the flip side of that coin, we also have something here that allows us to stabilize the rest of our life, the financial side. And one of the reasons why we're all, you know, kind of equally yoked in this project is we're trying to be what Maureen talked about earlier, is be the Redox educator. We're trying to teach people about a Redox lifestyle. Well, in doing that, we share it, and that's just we are financially benefited, not just by eating right and not having so much sickness, but we're financially benefited because other people, as we refer them to this, then we can obtain a little financial income in the process of doing that. The foundation of this is that we do have good science, we do have good cellular biology foundations here, and in sharing this with other people, we can begin to take control of our own financial lives as well. And there's a lot of rabbit holes with that in terms of, you know, finances as being a significant stressor in our life, and stress obviously is impactful on our gut health and our mental health and so on and so forth. And so I would just say that this theme of by being healthy and by being financially healthy, we're taking back control, and we need less intervention medically or financially.
That's right.
You know, something I was going to say real quick. You know, I'm 65 years old, and I used to work with my investment career. You know, when you get to our ages, people, you know, you're on that slippery slope. And I think that's a lie from the pit of, you know, well, where. But yet I want to live out the rest of my life the best way that I can. And it's all about me protecting my brain and protecting our vital organs. And I'm worth the investment back into me to do that. But prior to this company, I never had those solutions. But how well do you want to live out the rest of your life? Are you just scared to death that you're going to fall over dead any day? I mean, don't live in fear, take control. I love what Lee was saying. So go ahead, Russell.
So Dr. Lee says that when you drink these molecules, when you take these molecules into your body, you awaken your inner doctor. That's a great phrase. And that's a metaphor. The inner doctor means the self-healing capabilities inside of our body. You awaken that. The redox molecules awaken that. And I have grown to understand referral marketing, permission marketing, relationship marketing, network marketing as awakening the inner financial guru. You know, there is a more equitable way of redistributing this vast wealth that exists out there. And this is absolutely one of those ways. And I just watched for the first time, I don't know if you have all seen this yet, but Al Noble has a new presentation called The Thousand Heir, or Become a Thousand Heir. And it very clearly talks about residual income and all the problems in the normal economy, and how this, sharing something so significant that is totally safe, totally effective, can also work to liberate people out of financial stress, you know, financial sanity. What's the phrase we use? Jim, what's the phrase we use? Financial.
You mean the freedom?
Financial freedom, but dignity.
What do you mean?
Financial dignity.
Oh, dignity.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I
the
love
majority
that
of people don't have it. They're living scared to death, which is, it's a compounding, declining, falling down the staircase feeling that what do you do? And again, for the financial benefit for us, I mean, it was bad. You know, again, we had to use a crock pot to heat our water during the winter a couple of years, 4 years ago, because we couldn't afford to get a hot water heater. Guys, there's a lot of people hurting, and we can relate to that. And there's a solution out there. No pun intended, with Redox being the solution. But guys, we're towards the top of the hour. Maureen?
Yeah, you were going to say something about the video. Is that what you're saying? You liked it?
Yeah, I was like, we keep trying to end up at
I know.
45 minutes.
It doesn't matter.
work. No, I love that video, and I have shared that with a lot. And don't scoff at $1,000 a month. You know, for some people, $1,000 a month is what will help them keep their head above water. It's and Jim, this is I'm speaking in your area of expertise, but it's equal to, I believe, $250,000 in the bank at 5% will give you about $1,000 a month. And you know, I've had a couple of people who have been extremely blessed. They're you know, they make a lot of money. They're very wealthy. Who've kind of like, you know, I say an extra $1,000 a month, and they're like, you know, whatever. And I'm like, well, you know, oh, nice. I'm like, well, you know, who do you know that needs $1,000? You know, if that's no big deal to you, who can you give that to? Surely there's somebody that you know that's struggling that could benefit from an extra $1,000, or a charity, or a number of charities. Don't you wish you had $1,000 to send to Turkey right now? In Syria, you know, help with some of that, you know, rescue stuff that's going on. I mean, you guys, don't play small. You know, who are you meant to be, and what can you do with the resources you have? Take care of your family and your loved ones, and then pay into what you're passionate about. There's so many people, so many things, so many causes out there that could use those resources. So I love
and don't be misled or confused here. We don't stop at $1,000 a month, right, Maureen?
Right.
I mean, guys, there's no cap.
There's no cap. There's no cap.
None.
And
The cap's up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just become
Well,
more of who
yeah.
you are. You don't become, you know, some people think money is evil. It's not evil. You know,
No.
it's a
Like
reason.
Alan Noble said, I'd rather have it in the hands of good people like us versus the bad people like others. We can do a whole lot more good with it. But Lee, were you going to say something? Because we're going to go ahead and shut it down. We got another musical gig to go to with my son tonight. He's got another music thing tonight. So we love doing that. But next week, guys, and Russell, we just can't stop with you. I keep, you're mandatory every 3 to 4 months. But you know, it's really crazy about this stuff is that, does it work on animals, Maureen?
They have cells.
Do they have, I don't know.
Works on my
My dog.
household.
My dog loves it.
So we have our famous Beth Wolford and the amazing Marty Morin will
Those
be
are
joining us next week. And we absolutely love them because there's a lot of people that will do a lot more for their pets than they will for their own kids. But with that, Lee, do you want to say anything? Wrap it up?
No, this has just been such a pleasure to be with Russell tonight. You know,
Yes.
he's got such a wealth of information. Russell, hold up your book one more time to the camera, and I would
It's a good
recommend
book. I have it. It's a good book. I have that. I like it.
The No Diet Way to Complete Health. I think that's a good adjunct to this. He even speaks about redox signaling in it.
Yes.
Got a section in there. We just appreciate having you on and having you blend your expertise on with us on Asea 5.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks
you guys.
again.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Guys,
Have
this recording will be up at redoxmatters.com in about an hour?
An hour and a half.
Lee? Hour and a half.
Okay.
And so thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Maureen.
Nice Valentine's.
Yes,
Bye,
Valentine.
everybody.
Find somebody you love.
Oh, and take a look at that Valentine's special. What a great promotion. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yes. So guys, thank you so much. We love y'all. We will be back next Friday,
Yes.
8:00 Central. It'll be just come join us and bring somebody with you to come hear this information.
Bring
So
your
thank you
pets.
guys.
Bring your pets.
God bless.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Night.